Hey folks, David Stewart here. Time for a review of a series that I actually watched while I was doing cardio out in my garage. I watched it on HBO Max, but I think it's actually part of Adult Swim. It's called Ninja Kamui, and it is very okay. It's a well executed anime series of ideas that just aren't all that interesting. I'll go into depth with a lot of the different little pieces of it, but that's the long and short of it. If you're waiting for a review where I'm going to slam it and talk about how bad it is, no, this is not going to be it, and I'm not going to be able to praise it to high heaven because its core ideas are just not all that interesting. It feels like an assemblage of tropes of anime ideas that we've seen and heard many times before now. Basic setup is there's a secret ninja organization protecting Japan through the ages. Now the modern world threatens it. And there's a rebel ninja. He's an outcast. He's out doing his own thing, and the subverted ninja order is trying to kill him. We've seen that before. And then mecha. Then we're going to throw mecha into it, right? And it's like kind of scaled down mecha like Code Geass. Slightly larger than human mecha. And, you're going to be better with your mech if you're more intense. You're more connected to it. We've seen that kind of thing before. This is all stuff that we've seen before. Just executed moderately well. The breaks for the episodes are set up like a soap opera. You resolve you answer one question, resolve one conflict, you immediately begin the next one, so people will want to watch the next episode. They do that even all the way up to the last episode, where they show things and people we've never seen before, kind of tying up and resolving the plot, and maybe setting it up for season 2. It's very okay, and so that's the big problem with it, is that there's nothing special about it. There's very little reason to watch it. So let's talk about the aesthetics first. It's got a really standard anime aesthetic. And because it's Digipaint, that Digipaint aesthetic that we've had for years now, it looks kind of like Pokemon to me. That's what, especially the female character designs, they end up kind of looking like Pokemon characters. And they're sort of like broad gestures towards femininity. They don't look bad, but the character designs are really not that special. The mech designs are likewise not that interesting. There's like one mech that doesn't have arms or legs, and it's just like a guy like meditating and floating it inside. There's a couple interesting things like that, but the mechs just look like armor suits that are different colors with some lights, right? It's not all that interesting. Of course, the ninjas have like secret techniques, and those animation sequences can look pretty cool. One of the problems with the animation, besides the fact that it's just this ultra saturated, super bright Digipaint look for what is a very dark anime, I guess that's the big point, is like there's this contrast where the characters are very well defined and very bright, but the overall aesthetic should be darker and more muted, I suppose. The animation is generally good. There is what I would consider a pretty decent mixture of CGI and cell animation. It's really obvious to me, but I could see why they did it, which is that you use CGI for backgrounds so that you can do really complex environmental rotating, where you can do like big camera shifts with the animated characters and have the background kind of do that. So there's a lot of CGI backgrounds that pop out in kind of a weird way. There's no harmony to them, to the composition of them. They look CGI. They look really CGI. Then there's the fighting sequences. The fighting sequences look really good, but they look rotoscoped to me, which is not a bad thing. But rotoscoping has a certain look that when everything else is not rotoscoped, the rotoscoping will also tend to pop out. If you don't know what that is, that's where you basically trace over a filmed section. You trace animation over people moving. So it looks like a couple of, choreographed martial arts scenes like you'd see in a live movie, and then they traced over them to create those effects. It'd be very difficult to animate all of the different little martial arts moves that they did without some kind of heavy reference to real people. So that's what I'm assuming they're doing. Now, I could be completely wrong, and it could just be like really stellar animators that are able to do shifting perspectives like that. But my guess is they used reference pretty heavily to do that. And so those referenced parts tend to look quite a bit different from the other parts, where the characters they go from basically being very anatomically correct in the fighting parts to being more stylized with their body proportions, especially when they're just standing there. So you see them standing there and they're like 9 heads tall, and then they're fighting and their proportions are suddenly a little bit shorter because it's probably rotoscoped, right? That's kind of stuff stands out to me. Most people just like, it just looks different, but that's really what it is that it feels like they're using a reference, and then in other parts they're not using a reference. So there tends to be this contrast between those. That being said, I think those animations still look pretty good, even with the CGI backgrounds and the rotoscoping. I still think they're pretty fun to watch. So that's definitely, to me, one of the high points, as well as the way that they manage the fights so that they have increasing tension throughout the fights. It's not just a spectacle. It's not just the hero either getting a beat down or beating down someone else. And it's not like Dragon Ball Z where it's like, I'm powering up for the whole episode. There's none of that. Like, they're actually fighting. So that's, to me, one of the stronger points of the animation and the aesthetics in general. But like I said, generally the character design is a little bland and it's just too bright for the kind of story that's going on there. So overall, it's okay, right? I rate it like a C. The visuals are a C. And I'd probably rate the story as like a C. Like I said, it's pretty well executed, but it's not things that we haven't seen before. It feels like a collection of story elements kind of mashed together. We'll do ninjas and mechs, and we'll do, technology, cyberpunk overlord, and we'll throw that in there, and we'll just mix it up. And then we'll just use good writing techniques to write a soap opera with those tropes kind of there. And that works. Like, the story works. It generally has good story tension. You care about most of the characters enough to want to keep watching. But it's a good contrast to maybe my thesis that, like, most things are about good execution and not about the core concept. But in this case, the core concepts are just not that interesting. They just everything feels borrowed from something else. And so the result is, even though it's well executed, the core thing there just doesn't feel that interesting, and so the overall result is like a C. The characters are okay. You have these outcast ninjas, and this main outcast ninja on his quest for revenge, and so the quest for revenge is a big one. And then we're going to do our standard anime backstory reveal, where we're slowly revealing how we got to where we were in episode 1. We have some auxiliary characters, and the same thing happens with them. We're going to have some backstory reveal how they got to where they were in episode 1. So this is actually kind of good. You start in media res. You start in the middle of things, and then you just have the flashbacks that fill in the gaps as you go. That way you don't have to spend a lot of time on exposition right at the beginning. You just give the amount of exposition that's necessary to understand the immediate threat. The dude gets his family killed. He's on a quest for revenge. That's all you need to know in episode 1. So they do a really good job with that. They hit the ground running hard with their main conflict, which is the main character's name is slipped my mind because I'm just talking to a camera. But his main conflict, his desire for revenge. And then we get to pile on the conflict as things go on. Each character has a different motivation. There's an FBI agent about ready to retire. It's his last thing before he retires, Such a cliche, but it works, right? Because there's a reason every writer does this, is because it makes a compelling character. A character who could just walk away at any time, but because of his internal morals, because of his forthrightness, because of his quest for justice, he stays on the case even though he has no incentive to, because he's just a good character. That works. It's a really good trope to use, and so they just use it, right? And the FBI agent, he's okay. There's another FBI agent. Turns out, is she a bad guy? Is she a good guy? There's a couple twists. Of course, we have some backstory reveals that fill that in. We have a couple of main antagonists, and we eventually get those filled out with enough flashbacks to know why they are doing what they're doing. So it's one of these things where we gradually uncover all the different angles from the plot, so that at the end it's not just a quest for revenge. You're saving the world, right? Because overthrowing the bad guy doesn't just get revenge for what he did to you, but prevents the world from being ruled by the bad guy, and how he got there and what his plans are and what he wants to do, which is to take his secret ninja organization and make it rule over the world, right? Really standard story writing stuff, but like I said, they do a good enough job with it. They execute it really well. The micro is done really well. The last couple things I'll tie up with is that I do recommend, like with most things, I recommend the subs, not the dubs. The dub is not terrible, but the sub, I think, communicates the story better. Believe it or not, it's not just like the voice acting's bad. I don't think it's terrible in the English version. But the changes that they made to the dialogue, I noticed in a couple places kind of comparing them, you just get a better understanding of the story with the Japanese and then the subtitles. So I recommend the subtitled version. There's a couple of jokes that are going to be kind of funny if you're watching in Japanese, like seeing a character being an American character but singing something in English with a weird accent. It's just very funny to me. It's not intentional. It's just the funniness of the outsider hearing those little elements there. So, overall, it's okay. I could recommend it if there's nothing else on your watch list and you want to see some good fight choreography that's probably rotoscoped to an extent or heavily uses references, maybe video references in order to get that animation there. Overall, it's okay. It's very okay. It feels like I've seen the series before because I've seen every individual element in the series somewhere else before this. And so that leaves it feeling like it's not very original. I don't know. Maybe you watched it. Leave me your thoughts down below in the comments section. It's okay. I give it a C. I'm going to give it a C. All right, that's it. Make sure you are on my mailing list, deviouspress.com/list. You get a free book for being on that. And, of course, you can get a free book every month on my Patreon, patreon.com/David V. Stewart, I think. And make sure you follow my Substack. I usually publish at least one article a week that is very different from the YouTube content. So check that out, and I will see you all next time. Have a great day.